Welcome, everybody, to the Monthly Movie Dispatch. We get together every month and talk about what movies we've seen, what we recommend, and sometimes what to avoid. What separates us from the other 100,000 movie-related shows on the internet is that we're high school friends. We've been doing this for 10 years, and we're going to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, even if no one's listening. So, we got some great friends here. Who do we got? We got Derek Deal in Everett, Washington.
Hi.
Sean Bowlby in Seattle.
That's me.
And Brandon Bowlby in New York City.
How's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. I'm just really psyched. We're recording this one kind of late, just to give behind the curtain a little bit. We have kind of combined our December and January episodes together. We're recording this in the new year. Happy New Year, guys. And it just such a big time of year for movies, and the release schedule was kind of inconsistent for New York and Seattle and blah blah blah. So we wanted to give us all time to see all the movies that were coming out this time of year. So this will be our last episode of the movie season. So we're going to go over what movies came out, what we're psyched about, and then our next episode will be our big end of the year finale top 10 episode. I think it's safe to say our favorite episode that we record every year. So
Definitely.
Yeah. So we're gonna each say our favorite movie. I should mention that there are two movies that all four of us gave 4 stars or higher: Marriage Story and I Lost My Body. But unfortunately, each of us picked a different movie to kind of represent for themselves. So we do love those movies.
Too much
Marriage
good.
Story.
Yeah,
Too
end
much
of the year is
good.
packed.
So Marriage Story, I Lost My Body. Both are great movies. They're both on Netflix.
Yep.
You should watch them if you haven't already. So I think we should just jump right in. I do have some warm-up questions. The Oscar nominees just came out. So real quick, we're going to do some quick warm-up questions about these. So guys, who do you want to win Best Actor? Adam Driver or Joaquin Phoenix? Want.
Has Joaquin won?
I mean, probably Joaquin Phoenix, but I just love Adam Driver so much.
Yeah.
I kind of
It'd be
agree
really
with
fun
that.
if Adam
Joaquin
Driver
Phoenix
won.
did do a better performance. But
Yeah.
God, it would be so cool to see Adam Driver on stage.
Yeah.
It would.
Joaquin Phoenix won, I think, for Walk the Line, so he has won before. But
Yeah.
okay, do you guys think that Joaquin Phoenix is going to win? At
I
this point?
think so.
Yeah,
It's kind of
do too.
weird. Like, before the nominations came out, I would have never thought so. And then Joker got so much love from the Academy, and now that makes me really think, yeah, he probably will
Yeah,
win.
that's right.
Yeah, Joker got 11 nominations.
That was really surprising.
So, guys, speaking of Marriage Story, what do you want to win Best Original Screenplay? Marriage Story or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Oh, man.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for me.
I mean, I guess I want Marriage Story to win. That doesn't necessarily mean that it had a better screenplay. Tarantino's won enough writing.
I'm not asking you what you
awards.
think is better, just what you
Yeah.
want.
I'm leaning Noah Baumbach.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you guys think that movie will win? I don't even know what the front runner is in this category, so I'm not totally
Yeah,
sure.
me either.
Best Director, Sam Mendes or Bong Joon-ho?
Bong Joon-ho.
Oh, yeah. Bong Joon-ho, for sure.
Sam Mendes.
You hate Bong Joon-ho, though.
I love Bong
Parasite.
Joon-ho as a director. He's undeniably an incredible director.
Just because Sam Mendes has been gone for so long would be
But
cool.
just Sam Mendes is just in this movie. It's just
Sam Mendes has
the
been
way it's
gone?
put director. Is
I guess from the
visually-
Academy, he's been gone
Yeah,
for a
from the
while.
Academy.
Yeah.
He's been making
I mean,
Bond
Bong
movies.
Joon-ho's never really been there, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact,
Okay.
I don't even know. I'd be interested to see if any foreign director has really been made it to the best director category. Have they for like
Alfonso Cuarón.
Yeah, I mean, I guess besides the three Mexican directors that win every year.
Yeah, besides that. Ang Lee.
Yeah, but Roma.
sure.
But in terms of like foreign language films, like Roma, Parasite, I don't know
Was,
what another
Crouching
one
Tiger,
would be.
Hidden Dragon.
Ang Lee. Yeah, I'm sure Ang Lee was nominated.
For Crouching Tiger.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I would. I don't know. Should I look that up? I'll look that up.
Sure, look it up. While he's looking it up, this one, the last question, it's not an either or question. So it's open field. What do you think will win Best Picture?
1917 is probably just the front runner.
Yeah, I that's my answer. 1917 probably. I think The Irishman has a really good chance. Anything else would be a surprise to me. Although, you know, I think Parasite, I would be happy. Actually, I would be happy with almost any of these movies winning.
Right.
Except for Ford
I think
versus Ferrari.
Yeah.
I think
Except for
Parasite
Ford versus
has.
Ferrari.
I think Parasite has a chance.
Yeah.
But yeah. Derek, what about you? You didn't answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm on the same boat. Probably 1917 or The Irishman.
Okay.
They just feel like the kind of movies that win. I don't know, but who knows? It's always so weird what they end up choosing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, there's, you know, it's so political. There's still going to be a few more weeks of talking
Right.
and figuring it out.
What
But
the Green Book won last year?
Right.
Like what?
But also like Moonlight Moonlight won a few years before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very strange.
yeah. I didn't ask what your what you wanted to win Best Picture or what your top movie is, because we'll go over that next month on
Big
our
spoiler.
Spoiler.
Yeah, we'll go over that next month on our top 10 episode. But in the meantime, I did want to say that we are going to do a contest again this year between the four of us. So make sure ahead of time you write down your picks. And you should also take a picture of it. Maybe send it in the group chat so we know no one's cheating.
Right.
Brandon?
Brandon.
The
right,
Just kidding. I don't think you cheat. But
So good last year.
we
though.
should...
It was crazy.
We should we should all write our picks, share them within the group, and then the winner, whoever guesses the most. Again, it's not who you want to win; it's who you think is going to win, and whoever gets the most will make everyone else watch a movie, and then we'll talk about it on the podcast. So let's get into the episode, guys. We've got 4 big movies to talk about, and Derek, you're going to kick us off.
Yes. So my movie I chose was Knives Out. And I actually saw this movie November 23rd. It's been so freaking long since I saw this
Oh my
movie.
goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you saw a sneak preview of it, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, AMC like randomly does little like early weekends for movies. They'll just have like 1 or 2 showings. I got to go see that. The IMDb plot summary of this movie is: a detective investigates the death of a patriarch of an eccentric, combative family. That's it. Yeah, so it's Rian Johnson's newest movie, his follow up to Star Wars, and it's awesome. It's a whodunit. So if you haven't heard anything about it, that's kind of what it is. It's like one of those old, I don't know when they're from, like 50s or whatever, like mystery novel type things. Is what it's kind of based off of, Agatha Christie kind of thing. What I really liked about this movie is just how big it felt and how different it was. Like it because of its cast, and I think they're advertising for it, and it's largely positive reaction at festivals and stuff. It kind of came out, and it felt, to me at least, felt like a blockbuster. It's got like, you know, Chris Evans in it, and freaking Jamie Lee Curtis, and it's just like a whole ensemble cast of really
stellar cast.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just this. It's a fairly small movie. It's not like this big epic or anything. So, Daniel Craig, of course. Daniel Craig's amazing in it. So yeah, it just feels like this big blockbuster, but it's just such a small character-driven movie that it's just a really unique experience. And I'm so glad that it was such a big hit and stuff. It's so honest too. Like, it just feels like you can feel Rian Johnson's love for this genre and this type of movie. It's so indulgent in the stereotypes and stuff of that genre. And I think that has a really big effect on how you experience it. It makes it just feels like you're having more fun because you can tell that the people making it are enjoying it so much. And yeah, I think it's one of the funnest movies I saw this year. So that's why I chose it as my favorite movie of the last month.
Nice.
Yeah.
Derek, I'm with you, man. I love this movie. We saw it for Thanksgiving on with Chan's family. So
nice.
Yeah, we do tradition. Like, the tradition is to go see a movie on Thanksgiving. So that was the pick, and yeah, I mean, it was a crowd favorite. And one of my favorite parts was Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc.
Yeah.
My question was going to be, do you think there will be more whodunit movies featuring Benoit Blanc? But it was announced that Rian Johnson is working on a script for another movie.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I would love to see more and more of these movies where it's different cases featuring Benoit Blanc and his conniving, thoughtful skills as a private investigator. Do you think this will be a successful franchise?
Yeah.
Continue with it?
I think so. I mean, I feel like we've been kind of robbed of Daniel Craig movies just because he's been so consumed by Bond for like the last 10, 15 years. But every time I see him in a movie that's not James Bond, he's so freaking good. He always is a standout.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that character especially is just so unique, and like it's just such a creative little character for them to have made. And yeah, I'd love to see more of these. You don't get to see these kind of movies, really. People don't make them. So I think it'll be successful. This one was. So
yeah, this one, I do want to say real quick that this one made the top 20 highest grossing movies of 2019. So
that's awesome.
I just think that's a win right there. Like, that's awesome.
For sure. Also, they said, I think I saw that he's aiming to have it out this year, potentially. Like 2020.
Sequel?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I listened to an interview with him about this movie. They also made this movie in under a year. Like, he started writing it in like February of 2019 or something crazy like that. And
yeah,
just,
he had also
really
been
quick.
thinking about it for a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
But which means maybe he has been thinking about multiple stories for a long time as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I really liked this movie a lot. I think you gave it like 4.5 stars, Derek.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was leaning between like a solid 4, 3.5. But regardless of that, like, I had such a blast watching this the whole way through. Like, it's almost impossible to walk out of this movie and not have had a good time. And kind of something weird I felt happen like the week or two after this movie came out is a lot of people were like kind of talking about it or like had heard about it in passing. Like, it had really good word of mouth because I had multiple people kind of bring it up, and I'm just like immediately just like, yes, you should go see this movie. Like, it's so easy to recommend to anybody who just wants to have a good time. And I think that's the thing I appreciate the most about it.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a fun movie. And it keeps like a really good pace too. Like, it's not like a slow burn thriller. It's not like, it's a fairly upbeat kind of silly. Almost, it's probably, you could probably throw it in the comedy category even at a lot of points.
Yeah.
Regardless of Star Wars, it's such a natural progression for Rian Johnson to go from like Brick to Brothers Bloom to, to Knives Out.
Yeah.
Like that's just like a perfect growth trilogy of personal films for him.
Looper to
Oh, fuck.
Looper
Forgot
in there,
Looper in
too.
there too. Right?
Yeah. I want to say, like, this was one of the first thoughts going out of the movie I had was this is the first Rian Johnson movie I've seen in a really long time where I didn't feel like I've always felt like I really liked it, but there's something. So it's like Star Wars, I had a lot of butts. Looper, I had butts about. And it was just nice to see this, to like, I've always been a fan of him, and it was just really exciting to come out of there and just like, God, I loved everything about that movie. I'm so glad he's
I feel
still
like
got
I,
it.
I don't know Daniel Craig as an actor pre-Bond, even though he was like, he wasn't young even when he started
Right.
that franchise.
Yeah.
But after, it's so fun to see him in everything he's done since I've started noticing him. And the fact that this could possibly continue as a series with him not even being, I guess, technically the lead, he's kind of supporting.
Right.
But he'll be the focus of whatever continues going forward. Is like a really cool perspective to just keep changing the cast, but have this one guy be the
For
consistent.
sure.
Yeah, this could be like almost it's a completely different type of movie, but the Mikhail Blomkvist, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
That's what I was thinking of, yeah.
Like that was supposed to be a franchise that at least did a trilogy, but very easily could have kept going with even more movies, but it was cut short. It didn't do, I don't think it did as well at the box office.
Yeah.
Daniel Craig was in that one too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but a different role. Like it would have been, like he wouldn't have been the detective. In that one.
Well, and
He loves solving
he was
mysteries.
the detective he was an investigative reporter in
Right, but in the sequel, he wouldn't have been in the sequel, right?
Yeah, he's in all the novels
Oh, okay. Well, then I don't know what I'm talking about. Sorry.
that were written. As far as I know, I only read 3 of them, but yeah. Derek, I'm really glad you picked this movie. I was very close to picking it, and it just like it came out so long ago, and it just didn't. I don't think it came out in time for our November episode, and we just didn't get it in there. And now it's been so long, I was worried that we wouldn't get to talk about it, but yeah, I'm really glad you picked it. And one of my favorite, before I say my question, I wanted to give a little spoiler warning. I wanted to talk about something that happened in the first act, at the end of the first act of the movie. It's a little kind of first act twist that happens. So if you don't want any kind of plot details spoiled for you, you should skip forward. And we're not going to talk about the ending at all, but skip forward 5 minutes if you haven't seen the movie, because it's a pretty fun twist. So spoiler warning. One of the most interesting things about this movie, I think, is its structure. It is not structured like a typical detective novel or Agatha Christie novel, where the entire movie you are wondering the entire story you're wondering who the killer is. At the end of the first act, it is revealed who the killer is, and you spend the rest of the movie knowing who the killer is, and it kind of really throws the viewer for a loop, and the movie kind of does an interesting 180. And I was wondering what your guys' experience of that twist was like. How did it affect your experience of the film?
It's definitely like a weird like speed bump to like you don't really expect, and you're kind of like you definitely have a couple minutes of trying to recontextualize the movie and like. Because it's not the way that these stories are usually told, and it kind of like it is a weird like I think interesting is a good description of it, because it's like it is kind of a thing where you're like initially like, well, what? Thought that's the okay, but
Yeah, I thought that was the whole point.
yeah, You're like, we still have like an hour left in this.
Yeah, as it happened, my head was kind of like putting it as like, I don't like this. Like, this is kind of ruining the movie.
That's
But
kind of
as
how,
it kept developing, I grew to appreciate it while I was sitting there watching the movie and trying to like still guess what else was coming forward.
Yeah, I think
Well,
that's got to be like the common effect. Like, because I definitely was just like, well, but I have faith in Ryan Johnson that he's clearly this movie works and people love it. So, like, you can't get too caught up in it.
Yeah.
Right. I was pretty thrown off too. I mean, I had a hard time believing anything was real after that. Like, I know that the twist happens, and there's still plenty of mystery to be had somehow.
Right.
And there was still plenty for us to follow and figure out and twists and turns, but I don't know. I still was like, even though they kind of gave a big thing away, I was like, really though? Like, was that really what happened? Because is there even a mystery to be solved?
Right.
I kind of just questioned everything after that,
I get that.
even though they were upfront with it.
Yeah. It's like, it's such a play on an established trope that it's like, it's almost hard to believe. And yeah, my experience was like, you can't do that. Wait, what?
Right.
That's not how this works. But then I felt, yeah, like, actually, I don't even remember who said it, and it was like 30 seconds ago. But yeah, I very quickly kind of almost forgot that was a big deal. Like, because the mystery just keeps on going, and you're still like questioning everything. And I think Brandon said the mystery is still so tantalizing.
Her cover
yeah,
up becomes fun, like really quickly.
Yeah, for sure. That's the fun part. And in an interview on the Slash Filmcast, Ryan Johnson said like it starts out as a Agatha Christie mystery novel and then turns into a Alfred Hitchcock thriller. And it's such a fun twist once you get into the meat of the second act.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, so that's Knives Out. Do you guys have anything else to add?
No.
Go see it.
Cool.
Yeah, good check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I think
it's
it's
got to
still
be
in
on
theaters.
demand somewhere. Oh yeah, it is
Honestly,
still
I
in
think
theaters.
it's still in
I
theaters.
might
It's still-
actually go
yeah.
rewatch it soon.
I went to the theaters last week, and I bumped into a friend who was going to go see it, and he seemed very shocked that
Yeah, it's
I
playing
had already
everywhere
seen it.
still.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising because he was like, yeah, I'm going to go see Knives Out. I was like, oh, that's great. You're going to have such a fun time. And he was like, oh, you've seen it. I was like, yeah, like 3 months ago.
Wow, that's really cool that
Not
it's still
3,
going.
but
That's crazy.
It just got nominated for Best Original Screenplay.
Yeah,
great.
good on him.
So, cool. So that's Knives Out. It's still in theaters now. Check it out. Brandon, you're up next.
All right, so my favorite movie of the month of December is the Safdie Brothers' Uncut Gems. So I'll read the IMDb synopsis, which is really long. A charismatic New York City jeweler, always on the lookout for the next big score, makes a series of high-stakes bets that could lead to a windfall of a lifetime. Howard must perform a precise high-wire act balancing business, family, and encroaching adversaries on all sides in his relentless pursuit of the ultimate win. So this is kind of just a story about a really piece of shit guy. And you're following him through his addiction of gambling in some form of another. And it is a fascinating, intense as fuck movie. So the Safdie brothers as directors, I guess they have 4 films, as we discussed earlier, but really 2 like ones that have been notable. I think their first 2 were very, very small projects. And their last film, Good Time, was in my top 10 and I absolutely loved. And it's a very good film. It came out maybe 3 years ago. And it's cool to see how these films have a lot of similarities, and that these directors are kind of developing so far what's their own like visual style and setting. Like both the movies take place in New York City. A lot of it is like at night, and a lot of it is very just like gritty and like literally grainy. And a lot of just like lights of the streets and overexposure and just like neon, just like a really cool dark New York setting. And both the movies have this like forward momentum of just like one problem leading to another, just on and on. Kind of just like a great adventure film, where everything is just strung together in one line of this causes the next thing. And movies like that, for some reason I'm comparing this to Indiana Jones or whatnot, but movies like that are always just like really interesting and entertaining, always have like great forward momentum. So that's something that I get both of their movies have so far, Uncut Gems and Good Times. And I love them for that. This movie is really unique in its dialogue. And I feel like this is maybe becoming a more popular trend. Noah Baumbach does this a lot as well, and a lot of other writers. But this movie takes it to the absolute extreme, which is just having multiple people talking at the same time and just talking over each other and having multiple conversations that you're trying to listen to. And this movie takes it to such an extreme, it can become like a mess, but it's very intentional, because what this guy is going through and experiencing is a mess. So I think that's just like really unique, and these guys' writing style is great for that reason. As we've mentioned before, and as pretty much everyone mentions as soon as they get out of this movie, it is like the most intense thing you will see maybe throughout the year. And like sweaty palms, you're gripping your seat, like your heart is just pounding because everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And it's got to win. It's got to win some awards for most intense feature I've seen like throughout this decade. And it's not even a horror movie, or it's not even a movie like that. It's a thriller in that sense.
And then what did you think was more? What did you think was more intense, Good Time or Uncut Gems?
Uncut Gems.
See, I thought Good Time was much more intense.
Damn,
like, much more.
Okay.
Yeah. You keep saying these things about this movie, and I don't want to interrupt you, but like I keep like I want to push back a little bit. I don't know. I didn't think he was like a total fucking piece of shit like you described him as. I mean, I thought he was a pretty. He wasn't like he wasn't a great person. He wasn't even really a good person, but I didn't think he was the worst person in the movie. Even he just.
Well,
I kind of.
There's some really bad people in the movie.
Right, but I kind of felt like
murderers in the movie.
Yeah, there's people.
But I kind of felt like there was a lot of it was just like his lifestyle that he led, and he was a gambling act, but it wasn't just gambling. It was hawking. Like he was
straight up
owned
like
that
stealing
jewelry
things,
store,
doing extremely illegal stuff, and putting his
and
like
taking
his family
other
at jeopardy,
valuable,
doing things to his family. Like I don't know. Like this guy could get a lot of people hurt, and is doing many illegal things that are hurting other people.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by piece of shit. And he's an addict, and so it is pretty sad as well. But and just lastly, I really liked the family scenes in this film, especially with his wife. Their dynamic is so interesting, and the way she talks to him is just it's kind of where like a lot of the comedic scenes come from. Just the way she like speaks to him when they have their scenes together. But his relationship with his kids and some like scenes when they go up to like use the bathroom were just like really interesting moments. and especially I forget how he is related to him, but like is it his uncle where most of the conflict is coming from?
It's his wife's
brother.
uncle. I think he was probably too old to be her brother.
Uncle.
He was kind of older, so I think it was his wife's. It wasn't his wife's father, right?
I loved that dynamic of I don't want to do this to you, but I kind of have to, and just the way all this plays out throughout the movie with that character. So,
yeah, definitely. I mean, this movie, I haven't seen their third film, the one before this, but I mean, this movie was unrelenting in its momentum and pace. And it like throws you right into the middle of this crazy, insane world that this guy leads, and just dares you to hang on. Yeah, I mean, I was sweating by the end of this movie, and it's so intense, or it was so intense for me, and like such a whirlwind of craziness that like I walked out of the theater afterwards and had to regain my bearing. In a very similar way to like when I walked out of Mother, the Darren Aronofsky movie Mother. I was just like, I had to recenter myself after seeing this movie. And I loved the idea of exploring this character, this insane, despicable. I thought he was kind of a despicable character. I mean, he wasn't a murderer. There are worse people out there. But I thought he was a pretty despicable character, and the decisions he made throughout the movie were very selfish and were really screwing other people over in a pretty major way. And all of his decisions were, and all these things that were, all the problems that he was facing were self-inflicted. So, but it's really interesting to see this lifestyle, someone living this insane lifestyle, and I, as the audience, get to like experience it for a short amount of time. And yeah, I was just, it's such an intense movie.
It's a unique world that you get to experience.
Yeah,
like you're saying.
For sure. And yeah, the Diamond District, I guess, of New York City, it very much has a time and place. Yeah. And the performances, Adam Sandler doing what he does best, which is yelling at people. And he was perfectly casted in this movie. And, yeah, very impressive. But Brandon, you mentioned what was the previous Safdie brothers film?
Good Time.
Good Time. Yeah. So I haven't seen that movie, but I was wondering like how these two movies compared and how like their technique has developed over these two movies and
honestly
like where their style's going.
As I kind of was saying at the beginning about how similar the styles are, like what is so cool about it, and like you're saying, Nick, is like I think I prefer Uncut Gems, but both of these movies are so incredibly strong that I'm like extremely excited for where their career is going to go forward. Like Good Time is a very mature film on its own right, and I don't know. It's hard to say just with these two movies what's developed, because Good Time was in my top 10 and I thought they were amazing at doing that story as well. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're in the Good Time camp, Nick.
No, I preferred Uncut Gems. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
I loved this movie. I loved this movie. Like I was kind of pushing to see if I could introduce this movie, but I'm glad you did. I forgot about my choice. So I'm glad you did. But
which I had to remind you of.
I loved Uncut Gems. I liked Good Time. It wasn't one of my favorites. I don't think I had it in my top 10. But I did like Good Time. I thought the stakes were a lot higher in Good Time. Like I thought Good Time was more intense because it was he was trying to save his brother the whole movie, and if I remember correctly, his brother had a mental disability, and he was like he was so desperate to try to save his brother.
Being put in prison.
You know, maybe it's because it's Adam Sandler, but yeah, I liked this character. Like I enjoyed hanging out with him. Like, I mean, it was stressful, but part of it for me was just that that was the life he led. You know, he was borrowing money from different people. He was hawking different items from other people, and everywhere he went, there was someone on the street coming up to him and going, "Hey, where's that thing that you owe me?" And I mean, it was stressful, but I thought he was kind of on top of it for a lot of it. And you know, I kind of felt like, I just thought the stakes were lower because he was kind of just doing it to himself. I do kind of think that the central conflict of the movie wasn't really his fault. Like the central thing being the diamond, Kevin Garnett wanted to borrow it and then kind of didn't give it back. And, you know, he let Kevin Garnett borrow it and he was trying to get it back the whole movie, you know? And, you know, I don't think he really dicked over his family too much. Like, he was a terrible dad, like terrible, but like in the beginning of the movie, he's already like separated from his wife and like, you know, she'll find someone else. Like, she was a attractive young lady. Like, she'll find someone else, and the kids will be fine. You know, like if anything happens to him, like that's the thing. Is like it just kind of, I don't know. I just kind of like I enjoyed just being in the world with this guy, and I didn't get to. It was definitely stressful and intense, but I also didn't get as like, I don't know. I didn't get as like wrapped up in what was going to happen to him. And I'll tell you why. Because I feel like the whole movie was kind of like Burn After Reading. Like, I felt like the movie was an absurdist kind of take on the real world. Like, I'm sure this kind of like the world felt very real, and I'm sure that some of these people in the diamond industry, the diamond district, I'm sure there's people that live lives like this. But all the characters felt very real. But you know how at the end of Burn After Reading, they kind of J.K. Simmons he's looking at the file folder and he goes, "So what did we learn? I don't know. Don't do it again." You know, and that's kind of how I felt like this movie kind of was.
I don't know what the fuck we did.
Right, but like I felt like the movie told you that that's how this movie was going to be in the first scene. So the movie opens out. Let me just tell you real quick. I was kind of running late to the theater. You know, I'm like, AMC gives you 20 minutes of previews, you know, so I always play into that a little bit. So I went running into the theater, went inside. I didn't miss any of the movie. Like, I still had a preview, even though I was like 20 minutes on the dot. Like, so I was like, oh no, I'm gonna miss the beginning of the movie. I run inside, sit down. I still get to watch one trailer, and the movie starts, and it's like I don't even know where they're at. What do you guys remember where it starts? It's like they're mining for gems.
Yeah, it's in Ethiopia, diamond, or a mine in Ethiopia.
Right. So they're mining in Ethiopia, and I'm like, wait, am I even in the right movie? Like, why are we starting here? I thought this was a New York City movie, and you see the intensity of diamond mining, how people get hurt, people are killed while mining for these diamonds, and they find this rare diamond. They like find it. You can tell that it's like a treasure. It's like a piece of. It's a thing that they don't ever like. It's a masterpiece, and the camera zooms into it, and you see this psychedelic world. Like it's like you're watching Beyond the Black Rainbow. You know, it's like you're watching this crazy psychedelic movie, and you're like, whoa, like this is insane. What's happening? Am I in 2001: Space Odyssey right now? Holy moly! And all these crazy colors are swirling and whirling, and then it slowly zooms out, and you're inside Adam Sandler's colon, and he's at the doctor. Yeah, you're in his asshole, and it zooms out, and he's in a doctor's office, and the doctor's examining his colon, and I feel like right there the movie says, "Hey, we're up our own ass," like, you know, it's absurd, you know, and. I don't know. I kind of felt like right from the beginning, the movie has a weird sense of humor, and I was I was on board for it. So maybe that's why I didn't take it as like, I didn't think of it as intense, but yeah, I don't know. I just loved that so much. And I was just laughing. I was on board. I also wanted to say, it's also really interesting seeing 2012 as a period piece. I don't know about you guys, but I was like kind of obsessed with how they were using technology in the movie. Like there were parts where they pulled out their phones and they looked on Craigslist, which is a thing people still do now, but the way they were doing it, it was like brand new. You know, they were doing these things that were like, oh wow, that's so 2012 right there. And I kept wondering why is this movie such a 2012 movie? Like, why isn't this a modern movie? Why isn't it coming out today? And the answer is because this is actually the true story of the behind the scenes 2012 NBA Eastern Conference semifinals. You know, not the whole NBA finals, just that series of the NBA Eastern Conference finals. I'm just kidding. It's not the true story, but how awesome would that be? You know,
historical fiction kind of
right,
2012.
right. Yeah, this is a historical fiction behind the scenes of that NBA series. Like, so I just want to say Kevin Garnett is in this movie, and you know, he's actually really good. He's not just a cameo performance. He's actually in the movie a fair amount, and he's really, really good in it. And it's just kind of funny seeing, like, I don't know, he plays himself, but he's got that celebrity status, and he's kind of a big deal because he is a big deal. And I was just on board for all of that. I just thought all of that was so interesting and fun. So, yeah, Uncut Gems.
Sure.
Nice. Yeah, I wish I saw this movie. I didn't get to go see it.
Kind of forgot you didn't see it, Derek.
Yeah, this has like been the one I wanted to see the most, but I just haven't been able to get out and go see it. But so my question for you though is, now that we have the Oscars out, we know Adam Sandler didn't get nominated, and I heard that this was like a vehicle for Adam Sandler for a long time. Like they'd been working out with his agent, and his agent was kind of saying, you don't want to do this movie. For like 10 years they waited for him to agree to do this movie, and then he finally did. I'm just curious, like, how we've seen him in serious stuff before. It's just not very often, and sometimes it's not super serious, you know. It's like part comedy and stuff like this.
I think there's like 3 or 4 movies, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're right, they all came kind of far apart from each other. Yeah. There was Punch Drunk Love, Funny People, which kind of counts, and the Meyerowitz Stories.
Spanglish.
Yeah. Spanglish.
There was like Rain on Me or something, where there was a couple other more serious ones, but those were the 3 good, like, well-regarded ones.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm just curious, how good was he? Did he feel like Adam Sandler, or did he feel like this character?
He was incredible.
He was incredible.
Yeah.
He unbelievable.
I'm so sad he didn't get nominated for Best Actor.
Yeah. He really should have.
Like,
so
that's great to see.
For sure.
Big snub.
It's like still very much his voice. I think you mentioned it earlier on, Nick. It's his voice, it's his screaming and his shouting that he does so well. But I love how much they changed his look. Like, this guy looks the part in this movie, and they did great with his like hair and makeup and just kind of like making him
have like
grungy,
fake teeth in that movie too?
Just like a grungy New Yorker, like a kind of slimy guy a little bit. And it's cool to see him transform in that way. But he definitely owns this role and deserves.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
A nomination.
Hopefully he does more.
hopefully
Hopefully he doesn't.
I imagine
live up to his threat.
Yeah, I imagine it's kind of the intensity of it and the, just the constant yelling and that turn people away from it, I guess.
Or maybe just that it's Adam Sandler, you know, and he's just kind of a goof.
Yeah.
But, man, he
was kind of a goof. Didn't he threaten to that if he wasn't nominated, he he would make more shitty
Yeah.
comedies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Well, so yeah, that was Uncut Gems. It's still in theaters now. I would highly recommend it. It's a bit intense, but I don't know. I think it's completely worthwhile. Right, Brandon? Sorry, I didn't mean
Yeah.
to-
Right, Brandon?
See it and see both his last two movies. So
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to tell you guys about a movie called A Hidden Life. It's the new Terrence Malick movie, and I'll read the quick summary off of Letterboxd. Actually, I'm going to read the summary off of IMDb. The Austrian Franz Junkmeister, that's not how you say his name, Franz Jägerstatter, a conscientious objector, refused to fight for the Nazis in World War II. Simple concept, but very, very emotional. This is a Terrence Malick film. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Terrence Malick, he makes very beautiful, poetic movies. Often his movies don't have a lot of dialogue and sometimes hardly any story, but he always has gorgeous cinematography. Usually the camera flows in just very, very beautiful ways. Instead of having dialogue and a lot of story, he usually lets you just kind of soak with the emotions of what's happening. The last few movies that he's done, probably the last 3 or 4, Emmanuel Lubezki's been his cinematographer, and this one was not shot by Lubezki, but by Jorg Widmer, and he worked underneath Lubezki as the camera operator. And this movie is absolutely gorgeous. It takes place in the Alps, and it's just there are so many shots of just trees and clouds and waterfalls and just scenery that are just absolutely breathtaking. Like I said, like, wow, audibly during the movie multiple times. To me, like I said before, this is kind of like a ideal Terrence Malick film. His last couple films haven't been that well regarded. Like The Tree of Life, which to me is his best movie, came out in 2011, and since then he did a few movies that just weren't as well regarded. Knight of Cups was one, and I really did not like Knight of Cups. I felt like it was kind of a chore to get through, and then Song to Song was another one, and I didn't think Song to Song was great, but I enjoyed it. Like it was a very sexy movie. It was about rock stars doing rock star things, and sleeping with each other and just being gorgeous, just sexy people just kind of being sexy, and but also it wasn't like weird or anything. It just, the way he shot the movie, it just felt very sexy. But low stakes though. This one was great because the simple story let you really meditate with what was happening. You find out very early on that this is World War II, and Austrians, every male was obligated to join the military and pledge allegiance to Hitler and the Nazis. And he very early on decided that he wasn't going to do that. Like, he thought that they were evil. He said, can't they see how evil this is? And he decided to be a conscientious objector. And it was kind of about his soul. I mean, it was kind of a selfish thing in some ways, but also it was a form of protest, but also he wasn't doing it to formally protest. It wasn't like he was out there with a picket sign, and he just wanted to live his life and do his thing. He just didn't want to pledge allegiance to something that he absolutely didn't believe in. And what was interesting about the movie is that, clearly from a historical perspective, we all know that Nazis are like the worst, and I feel like all of us, would never pledge allegiance to Hitler or the Nazis. But the whole movie is about all the external pressures. You should do this, like people in society, the law, everyone is saying to you, you need to just say the words, join the military, and everything will be fine. And I think the movie's asking, at what point would you scrub your beliefs and pledge allegiance with Nazis? And really, there is no clear answer. And I think the movie doesn't give a right or wrong, or this is what he should do, or whatever. It lets you come to your own conclusion about what that is. And is it worth it to silently protest and save your soul when you have to sacrifice everything, including your family? I thought it was incredibly powerful, and I think it's there's a lot of crazy stuff happening in our world now too, and I think you also can't. I feel like you can't not ask yourself the same question, like, at what point would I stand up for something that I believe in the same kind of way, even if you weren't actually doing any global good in the moment. So, because it was a silent protest, but he was beautified by the Catholic Church, and so in the greater picture, he was acknowledged for what he did. But to me, the movie
right.
was
His story
Terrence
is
Malick.
known, and it's being told.
Yeah. To me, Terrence Malick, it was him coming back to what he does best, and lets you kind of just meditate with this big concept and kind of come to your own choices about it. It was pretty powerful stuff. I thought it was a really, really powerful movie. So
yeah, for sure. And I think the star of this movie and pretty much any Terrence Malick movie are the visuals. And man, what a location to shoot a Terrence Malick film in. I assume this was shot in Austria on location, somewhere in the Alps, Austrian Alps, and it is gorgeous. I loved the kind of juxtaposition, especially later on in the movie, between like the really serious when the guy goes off to prison and dealing with that stuff at a distant location, like how oppressive that was, but then it would cut back to this beautiful valley in Austria, and just like the serenity of the visuals in that valley it was really powerful when contrasted to other stuff that was going on in the film. I also really liked I've never pointed this out in a movie before, but the farming, right, guys?
yeah, no, I hear you, man.
Really good.
Yeah,
I
they had
kind
a lot
of
of
joke about that,
detail.
but it really,
Yeah.
like I loved how they almost throughout the entire movie, they never like repeated a farming technique. And it just like goes to show that like, these are, people, these people are the salt of the earth. They are, out there getting their hands dirty, farming and like, working in it. They're just like, it just portrays this such a wholesome lifestyle and the love that they have for each other and like the way that they live their life just feels so earthy and like good and pure and beautiful. And yeah, it's just like really putting in the effort to show that, to display that aspect of these characters, I thought was really interesting and really powerful. But yeah, I found it so interesting to have a movie where the premise is someone refusing to support someone doing something that is good and right and refusing to support this evil regime. And basically the entire movie, spending the entire movie convincing him and the audience that what he's doing is wrong.
Right.
And I feel like that's such a powerful message. Like in this movie, you mentioned earlier that the Catholic Church recognized later on what he did. I'm sure that was, decades later. But in this movie, he is alone. It's him and his family, but and his family supports him, but he is alone, and he isn't doing this for anything. He's not doing it to be the spark that ignites a flame, that starts a fire, that burns the Nazi regime to the ground or anything. He's not doing it to inspire. He's not doing it for any reason other than it is simply wrong, and these people are evil, and he cannot, his soul will not allow him to do it. And this movie does not take that for granted. I feel like in a lesser movie, or maybe not even a lesser movie, but another movie would show him inspiring the next generation, or show him starting a movement, or he would have some epic, monologue about why truth and good is good and evil is bad, and that's not in this movie.
The movie doesn't even really. Sorry. Don't
The entire movie, it's people trying to convince him and the audience that it is wrong for him to stand up because of. I'm sorry. There's a motorcycle going by. People convincing him that what he's doing is wrong, and because he has other things to worry about, like his family, and he shouldn't so willingly give up his own life, and the movie doesn't refute that. It never at any point says, yes, but what I'm doing is right. It just It kind of lets that play, and it says doing the right thing is right in its own right.
Like the movie doesn't even acknowledge that the Catholic Church beautified him.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Like the movie ends with, this was a hidden life, basically. Yeah. Like no one knew that he was protesting. No one knew that he was doing anything. The movie just ends like that. And I don't know. I thought it was very inspiring. Like I thought it was very inspiring to see someone hold on to doing what they thought was right. And even though every single person, besides his wife, was telling him that just admit to it. Just say, and just say the words. Mm-hmm. And Brandon, I'll let you say your piece, but I want to tell another story about my experience with this movie too. So, Brandon, your piece.
Mm-hmm. You want me to go now?
Well,
okay.
Yeah,
so
we could circle back around to what I was going to say.
I'm between you. I'm between old Malick and then Malick of his late two lesser films, I guess. To me, there wasn't a 5-star movie. I think it's awesome that you guys really got a lot out of this. But I guess it really comes down to the simplicity of this movie going along with how long this movie is. And it's a 3-hour film based kind of just in 2 segments of farm life and all this morality in the second half of the film that ends up coming up. And I mean, I guess in comparison to A New World, which I loved, it's like I think A New World struck a much better balance between the amount of things that happen in a Terrence Malick film and length, which is a half hour shorter, and maybe, a good handful, the amount more like scene changes and location changes and story movement. So it was just hard for me, I guess, to kind of get through all this poetry that went on for a very long time while still like acknowledging how drop dead beautiful it is, and also how much of an improvement it has been from, as you said at the beginning, Nick, his last two films, which really weren't about much at all. And hopefully I'm making sense, but I feel like this is on the right track of improvement, but I don't feel like it quite got there like A New World and Tree of Life were for me, for that reason.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you too, Brandon. I actually didn't rate this movie because I have no idea what even to rate a Terrence Malick film at this point. But I think it had a lot of really interesting things to say, and there's a lot of really interesting things the movie was doing, and it was gorgeous. But I'm not necessarily sure that it was. It had 3 hours worth to say. So, I totally get that sentiment, but I still very much was engaged in the movie and the visuals and the poetry of it, and still got a lot out of it.
I'm very happy that this is by far his best movie since Tree of Life, and so I'm really excited he's discovering that again, how to tell these kind of really intimate stories.
Yeah, I mean, the runtime didn't bother me at all, and I do think that's the only complaint about it, really, and not the only, but I think that's the main thing people have been saying about the movie is that it didn't need to be 3 hours long, and I don't know, I don't really care about that in this case.
I don't know what that means anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there's that famous Roger Ebert quote about how a good movie is never too long or too short, something like that. So, maybe that just means that you weren't enjoying it for other reasons or something. Like, and because for me, like the 3 hours, yeah, it felt long, and yeah, I got a little tired at some parts, but I enjoyed how slow it was because I don't know, I let my mind wander. I let myself kind of just feel a lot of different things and think a lot of different things. Like I was kind of all over the place with my experience in it. And I don't know, I felt like, yeah, I wasn't really too bothered about it at the time. Maybe if I had watched at home and I had to have the temptation of like my smartphone or something sitting there. But I don't know, to me it was like a nice break from reality where I was able to just at the very least see beautiful landscapes but then on top of it, all this like really powerful stuff that I just found very, very moving. So, I thought it was great. Yeah, I gave it 5 stars. So it was one of those things where like we talked about it, like my wife saw it the day before I did, and she came home and she was kind of like, oh, I don't know what I should give it, Terrence Malick feels like 5 stars. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I mean, when Terrence Malick's at his best, to me, he feels like 5 stars. Just like when Stanley Kubrick's at his best, it's like almost every Stanley Kubrick movie is a 5-star movie. And just kind of, Terrence Malick to me feels that way. Speaking of my wife, though, I did want to tell you guys, though, that when we saw the movie, like we saw it separately, like she saw it the day before I did, and kind of like switched, and she had a totally different take than me. Like I said before, like I was really inspired by what was happening with this character and how everything he did was for for what he thought was right, and she also, like I said, she gave it 5 stars, but she felt like he should have said the words and he should have joined the Nazis at some point. Just because
I wasn't sure if you wanted to get into this.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, that's why I gave you time to go first, because I thought these things would tie together. But she thought that the main character was actually the wife, Franz's wife, because he made his decision very early on in the movie. Like he made his choice and he was sticking with it. She was the one that actually had to like go through the turmoil of the rest of society and all the pressures that were being faced, and having to live with his mom, and how his mom really didn't like her, and how their relationship kind of changed over time, and how she really felt the brunt of it. And even though she stuck by with him, she like supported him 100%. She was the one that went through a character arc, and in a lot of ways, it's like, what would you really do that to your family? Would you really put your family through that? And that was kind of what my wife was saying was it, she would want me or her like to not just surrender yourself and then go and die, like
Help kill some Europeans, for the sake of the family.
Yeah, well,
I'm half joking. I mostly agree with Shannon. But it's really interesting. I guess I'll just say my 2 cents. One of my favorite scenes was when the lawyer was like, I cut a deal with you, or with the Nazis, I guess, and you don't have to hold a weapon. You can join the is it like infirmary, the medic, so you can just be like helping people. And then his next question was, but do I have to like pledge allegiance to Hitler? And he said, yes, you'll have to do that, but you can do it, but think something else. And that still wasn't a good enough option for him. And yeah, like healing people's wounds gets them back on the battlefield, which then in turn allows them to shoot more people, shoot more French people and Polish or whatnot. So in a way that can be doing more harm. And, it led me down this like long road, which is cool that the movie made me think about this, but like, what else could he have done? Like, he could have volunteered to actually serve in battle. And then as soon as he gets on the field, just like, put his hands up and walk into enemy lines and just be a hostage until the end of the war. A deserter. Maybe he could get away with that without getting shot. He could have just booked it off into the hills and tried to be like that homeless guy the wife kept seeing, the crazy guy in the woods. Right. He didn't go with that route either. He kind of let himself die in some ways, and that was frustrating to see. It wasn't a bad thing about the movie. It was a very fascinating thing, and it's a lot of stuff to think about.
Yeah, for sure. I totally forgot about the guy in the woods.
Yeah.
That was really interesting.
I'm such an outsider, like, when it comes to talking to Malik movies. No, it's okay. I literally...
Derek, have you not seen...
I haven't seen this. I've only seen A New World. It was in theaters. I haven't seen it since. It's been really long. That's like almost 15
The Tree
years
of
old.
Life's on your list of like most ashamed movies.
Yeah, it's on the... Yeah. So I'm just curious what... I have a feeling I know the answer. I'm guessing it's just because The Tree of Life is so good. You guys have become Malik. Like, forever. You'll just watch his movies, good or bad. But I'm just curious, like, how do you get into... Well, is it just go watch The Tree of Life and you'll get it? Or is it...
Well, the thing is, Tree of Life wasn't even his, like, big movie for a while. Like, he kind of had a reputation of... He kind of had a flawless reputation as a filmmaker for many years. His first movie came out... He had 2 movies that came out in the 70s. I think it was one movie in the 70s, one movie in the 80s, one in the 90s, one in the 2000s, one in the 2010s. No, not The Tree of Life came out in the 2010s, and then there were 4 movies in the 2010s. Yeah. But like, he only made like a movie a decade for many years. And
just gonna jump in and give that context. He made a movie in 73, then 78. 78 was Days of Heaven, and then it wasn't until 1998 that he made The Thin Red Line. So he didn't
make a movie in the 80s, but yeah, like Days of Heaven, The Thin Red Line,
Badlands.
Like the 3 of those alone were like he has the reputation of someone who only makes good movies. Like each one of those is beautiful and wonderful in its own right. And I think it's one of those things where people don't make movies like him. Like he's a one of a kind filmmaker. Just the fact that how poetic his movies are, I think you can compare them to like French New Wave type stuff. But oftentimes French New Wave, like they're dealing with like existentialism and often very selfish characters. Terrence Malick often deals with much bigger global issues and strikes a chord with morality and like the good and bad in people, and so there's often like a heaviness to his movies. So I don't know. I think he's like kind of a one of a kind of guy, and
A New World was where I started, and I didn't know who Terrence Malick was when I saw that in theaters, and I actually like really loved that movie in late high school when it came out, just on its own term. I was just like was blown away by it. So I'm kind of where you were at, Derek. That was the only one I had seen when I saw it.
Yeah, I think I saw
instantly
it with
made
you.
me a fan.
Yeah.
Don't know what's wrong with you. But.
I remember I saw Thin Red Line. It must have. I didn't realize it came out this late, but it came out in 1998, and I saw that.
Brett
that was
owned
my
it on
first movie
VHS
too.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like,
I feel like I saw the Thin Red Line on VHS first, and
At Brett's
I mean
house?
it's a really that's a really powerful movie too. Like that one it's like an anti-war film, and it's pretty gritty, and the cast is amazing. But yeah, you know, he's just one of those directors that has a big reputation, but it's deservedly so.
I do feel like I would almost recommend any of the other movies that I've seen of his. Just like jump in to Thin Red Line or The New World or Tree of Life, and they're relatively entertaining movies to watch. You know, I mean, yeah, they're slow and poetic and contemplative, but I feel like there's a good pace to them, and it's not.
It's
I'm
not
sure
a chore,
a lot
right?
of
like
people would
that's the
disagree
thing.
with me,
Like,
but
it's
yeah,
not a
I
chore.
don't feel like those are a chore. I do feel like, you know, as much as I like The Hidden Life, I can definitely see where this movie would be a chore. You know, like what you said, it's a half hour longer than The New World, and far less happens in it than in New World. So, yeah, definitely jump into any of his other movies, and I think most people would find that they enjoy them.
Yeah. I feel like Days of Heaven is also really short too. Like I feel like his movies that came out early, the 70s ones, are both like 90 minutes or something.
Yeah.
So and Sean, I'm with you. We watched The Tree of Life together like a year ago, I think, and it moves. It really moves.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not slow at all.
That's cool to hear,
it's
because I only saw
very
the movie
poetic,
once
but-
when it came out.
There's a long evolution of life sequence that I find absolutely beautiful. And so there's, I don't know, what is that, like a 15-minute sequence of that. But once you get into the story of Tree of Life, it really does move. It's less than a hour. It's only 2 hours and 19 minutes. So
So short.
So just jump in.
just jump in.
And me and Shan watched The New World around Thanksgiving last year, and that one too. Brandon, you're not wrong. It has a lot of plot. Not a lot, but a lot for a Terrence Malick film. So anyway, we should move on. Derek, you should really see. Just pick one. Pick one of those and have a great time with it.
Yeah.
Speaking of classic directors,
Sean, you're up.
Oh, my turn. You guys, I watched this movie.
Wait, time out real quick. Brandon, you're really setting it up like that? Terrence Malick and this guy? Really?
What?
Really?
when
Okay,
when
we
did
can argue
become
about
a
it later. We can argue about it later. I haven't
guess
seen
this guy isn't really.
I haven't seen this movie,
first
so I don't
movie
know,
Came out
but-
in '98.
But anyway,
Nick, you haven't seen
sorry.
1917?
I have not. I didn't get a chance to see it yet.
Okay.
Boy.
That helps to know.
You guys, I saw this movie 1917 that I really want to talk about. The IMDb summary is 2 young British soldiers during the First World War are given an impossible task: deliver a message deep into enemy territory that will stop 1,600 men from walking straight into a deadly trap. This movie is directed by Sam Mendes, written and directed by Sam Mendes, stars Dean Charles Chapman, who is Tommen from Game of Thrones, and George McKay.
Really?
Oh, is that a spoiler?
No. I
Yeah.
just had no idea that
Derek.
was him.
Yeah, and George McKay, who was in Captain Fantastic.
Hey, you worked on that
So-
movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Both really awesome in this movie. You guys, this is a freaking movie. To me, this is what movie making is all about. The high adventure, compelling characters, a simple story told well. On top of like beautiful and brilliant visuals. The movie does an incredible job with its characterization. It does an incredible job of weaving relevant and interesting characterization into really beautiful and poignant moments amongst the chaos of this epic war. It doesn't waste any time jumping into the plot of the movie. And once it gets started, it is a roller coaster. I felt like at any given moment of this movie, Sam Mendes was like reaching into the emotional portion of my brain and just cranking a particular emotion up to 10. It's such an intense movie. It's such a wild ride. From the tension and isolation of the no man's land sequence to the sniper sequence to like the heart-wrenching underground scene in the burning village. This is such an emotionally exhausting and intense movie. I felt like they did a really great job of displaying the unique features of this war too. I think most of the great war films do a really great job of showing the uniqueness of the particular war that they're about. And this movie, like the way that it shows this type of warfare of World War I with the trenches and the mud and the bodies left to rot everywhere, and the challenges with the communication and the airplanes and I think it does a really great job of, again, putting you in this time and place, putting you in this really unique war, and telling such an interesting story, taking on such an interesting journey in this movie. And you really can't talk about this movie without mentioning the cinematography. Roger Deakins shoots this movie. And in case anyone listening hasn't heard, the unique thing about this movie is that it's shot to look like it is a single take, like it's a single camera shot going throughout the entire movie. And Roger Deakins isn't typically known for this type of cinematography. He isn't really known for his really long, complex, intricate shots. He's more of a kind of classical cinematographer, unlike, say, Emmanuel Lubezki or Janusz Kaminski with in Spielberg films, or even like Alfred Hitchcock or anything like that. But he does this. He pulls this off with such a technical brilliance, and it was like. Coming out of this movie, it was the first time in a long time that I've seen a movie and was just dying to see how they pulled it off. Watching going home and watching videos, and just like fascinated with how they pulled off these shots in the movie. It was really impressive, and I really enjoyed this movie. It's super intense. Yeah, it's a ride. It is a journey, and yeah, I'm curious to see what you guys thought about it.
Sounds like we had a really similar experience. Yeah, I felt exactly the same way. It's like even throughout the movie, every time they're like in a new location, you're just like, how? Like, there's some that are more simple than others, but some of them you're just like, how are they? How? Like, this looks so freaking real. It's like, okay, so either it's all just really happening, they're just like running in front of it with a camera, or it's just like, that's when you feel like you're really getting the most out of like a movie going experience, is when they've put so much time and effort into creating what you're seeing. That's every movie, but this movie just feels like it takes it a step further with everything. It's like there's that, shot in the trailers that they always show of like the plane, like the flaming plane. It's like, I cannot even begin to understand how they pulled that off. Like, I don't even know.
Yeah,
either they threw a
shot,
plane at the actors, or they did something else, and I have no idea what else.
I don't know. It looks like a real, obviously not in like the background when it was flying around. That was fake.
Right.
But when it like comes at that looks real.
Like, I'm thinking they probably did it real, and there's just really, really impressive, people getting the stunt work and everything done properly. It's just, but there's that's the one that they advertise a lot, but that happens every 5 minutes. Like, a really impressive visual thing is happening in front of you, and you're just like, holy shit. And it's always intense. Like you said, the whole movie is just like really just nonstop intensity. And it's not even always action intensity, but it's emotional intensity, or, when stuff isn't happening, it's intense because you're like, they're on a battlefield. They're not where they should be. The whole movie, they're, behind enemy lines. So you're just like, it's just constant. Everything's tense all the time. But I really, really loved pretty much everything about it. I've heard people criticize like lack of character arcs and stuff like that. But I actually disagree with that. And I'm not going to get into too much into plot. Nick hasn't seen it. But I was actually really satisfied with where the characters go from start to finish. And I want to say, like, this is literally the thought that was running through my head while we were watching it. But there's a scene in there. It's in the burning village, and that set is so freaking massive and like towering, and like the way they shoot it is just completely insane with the lights and all the shadows, and just like I have not been that like overwhelmed by a shot since, like, what popped in my head was when I first watched Metropolis, like back right after high school, Fritz Lang's Metropolis. Just think, and it's a little different perspective because back then, they didn't have the technology we have now, but it's like seeing what you're seeing on screen is just so unbelievable that amount of work like went into creating something that massive at that scale. And from what I've seen, that they actually built that whole thing. That's a full, like, gigantic set. And it's mesmerizing. It's crazy. I don't know. It's one of those movies that is just left me completely breathless afterwards. I was like, that is the point of film. Like that is exactly what I want to see in a movie, and that is like, as far as like action or like war movies go, I don't know how much better you can get.
Yeah, totally. I watched a few videos and read some stuff on it, and like all those sets, they, obviously this movie took a ton of prep work and planning, but they would go through these scenes and rehearse them, and like the sets had to be built with the exact specifications of what the scenes required. So like if they're walking through a trench and talking for 3 or 4 minutes, the trench needs to be that long, and as they walk they have to get to where they're going at a very specific point in their conversation, and so like the way that they had to plan all that out, along with how they're going to move the camera through these sets and move the camera from one set to another, and it was just it's such a a fun thing, especially like I could imagine me as an aspiring filmmaker back, maybe in high school or in college, and just salivating over a movie like this, and just be dying to know how they did it. And I remember me and Brandon had the extended edition box sets of or not the box sets, but the special edition DVDs of Lord of the Rings, and we watched all of the special features, like 10 hours per movie of special feature. We watched every single one multiple times, and I could definitely see doing that with this movie at that time.
Yeah, I'm bummed I didn't get around to seeing it, guys. It just didn't happen. But I am a little curious. Just as someone who hasn't seen it, what you keep hearing about is how it's one shot, and I know that's not accurate.
Did you guys hear that this movie is one shot?
Yeah, that's all I hear about it.
That's what they say.
And I mean, you'll probably have your own subjective answers to this, but like Birdman, it's like Birdman, where Birdman was made to look like one shot, but it was clearly like a whole thing. And I don't know about you, but when I first saw Birdman, I honestly didn't even pay that much of attention to how it was supposed to look like one shot. But then a lot of people were calling it sort of like a gimmick. Do you guys did you find it like a gimmick? Did you find it distracting or powerful or unnoticeable? What did you think?
Do you mind if I take this, Sean? It's kind of what I wrote
jump
here.
in. Yeah.
One thing I kind of wish people would talk about this film in a slightly different way. That we all know it's not actually one shot like the movie like Victoria was, but I wish people would talk about it more in the sense that this is a real-time film, because I think that's the more important part, and the more important thing that like making it air quotes one shot is trying to accomplish. It's trying to like take the main character on one journey from beginning to end and make you feel like you're standing there right next to this person going through that nonstop exhaustion over the course of literally exactly 2 hours. And I think like that's kind of where the motivation of trying to attempt this kind of one-shot stunt comes from, is by 2/3 of the way through the film, you literally feel like you have walked 2/3 of the way to the end journey with this character. And only a shot like this can kind of make you feel that, because as soon as you start throwing cuts in there, our minds are kind of used to time passing, even though if it's technically not. And it just conveys that this film is a 2-hour chunk of time more than they could do any other way.
See, I didn't know that at all. I didn't know that it was supposed to be just those 2 hours. It being a war movie, I assumed that it was, even though it was made to look like one shot, like it could, they could go over a hill and then be in another place. I don't know.
Because Birdman, like you were saying, is kind of similar. Like it is one shot,
right?
But they hide their cuts through like CGI, like 1917.
And also,
But
Birdman
Birdman
takes
takes place
place-
over days and days,
Right.
because you actually
Yeah,
see
and in
time
like
pass.
different location, like it jumps from one end of the city to the other. I mean, it still holds that one shot feel throughout the entire movie, but yeah, it takes place over a long period of time and over several locations that it jumps between. So that is very different in this movie. Although I will say that it is kind of has that effect of Victoria, though, more so than Birdman, whereas Birdman is more to keep up the pace of the drama and the plot, whereas Victoria and this movie are meant to give you that real time feel and that sense of being there with the characters on this journey.
The anxiety of like knowing that night is coming and stuff like that too.
Yeah, for sure. Knowing that they have to accomplish this in a certain amount of time and following them along that journey. And for me, it works. I think early on I was, there's a lot of buildup to this movie. I'd heard months in advance that it was supposed to be a single shot type movie. And so I was very aware of it in the first 5-10 minutes or so, just because that was in my head. And it's hard to know what someone who didn't really know that or really care too much about that kind of stuff, how they would experience it. But for me, it was just fascinating the entire time. And I did, after 5-10 minutes, kind of forget, like I just was wrapped up in the film, and I would obviously was still aware of it throughout the rest of the movie, but it just felt like the movie, it just felt like a movie to me after I got over that first little, over my own thoughts, I guess.
Hey, a couple things I really loved quickly is, I think you said it almost, they paced out the like major events so perfectly throughout this film. Like it's not like before sunrise where you have like 25 minutes of people talking and walking and then something happens. It's like so well paced through this challenging single take that they do. I thought that was such a great choice to keep the film moving. And this film does like callbacks really well. There's some poignant stuff that comes back, Chekhov's guns through this whole movie. And the writing in that sense like was amazing. And when those things happen, it really got to me, and I love that.
For sure.
And I can't finish this review without mentioning the fucking climax of this film. Just takes everything you've seen so far and ramps it up to 100, and it is the most like glorious, amazing fucking climax I have seen. I just wanted to like stand up and cheer. My jaw was on the floor.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. And you guys know what I'm talking about, and I wrote it in Letterboxd, but I was like, that just caps everything off in the best way possible. And it had the emotion behind it. Like, it wasn't just a cool looking action thing. It was like, it had a purpose and such a great like emotion behind what was happening.
Definitely. I wanted to go back to one thing. I think, who said this? Nick or Derek said the thing about the characters. I kind of see this movie, or the one criticism apparently that people have is that the characters are underdeveloped. I experienced this movie. Well, my first thing to say about that is that it really is kind of, the characters are audience surrogates for us, and it's really us experiencing this. But outside of that, I kind of compare it to Mad Max Fury Road, and actually these two movies have a lot of similarities, but especially in characterization, they both give you so much characterization in very subtle ways and weaved throughout the story and through the action sequences. You really get a sense of who the character is and where they're going, and or you get a sense of their character arc, not through like learning backstory and through scenes of extended dialogue, or it really is, as the movie is moving at this rapid pace, you get these beautiful, subtle pieces of characterization that, at least for me, made me connect so deeply with the characters. And especially, by the end, I'm just like so wrapped up in what they're doing, where they're going, and like what and everything that's happened to him. I thought it was brilliant in that respect. And yes, it's not, this movie isn't a character study, but I do think it has some very strong characterization that worked really well for me.
So do you think you'll, if you were to make an all-time war movie list, do you think it'd be upper echelon?
For Derek, it probably would be.
For Brandon, I think it might be.
Yeah, definitely.
You guys are funny.
I mean, we don't want to build it up too much for you. We know you haven't seen it. We don't want to, we don't want to overhype it, but
isn't that kind of your guys' thing? Don't you guys love to overhype stuff?
I will say this is his second war movie that he's made, and I really love both of them. Like, this is, I don't know where you guys stand on Jarhead, but it's always been like one of my favorite war movies, just because its message and stuff. And
yeah, for sure.
I like this one more than Jarhead. So
I mean, Jarhead's very different.
It is very, very different.
I mean, as far as I remember, there's like no like war or battle sequences in the entire movie, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of the point.
It's kind of the point
So
of the movie.
It's a very unique and very different war film, but it's really interesting.
Yeah,
and
totally
like,
different wars, too.
all of his movies,
sure.
it's all about getting to the core of the characters, I think, and in like bringing large ideas and large aspects of life and humanity and history down to like a single character. And Sam Mendes, like, I think I was talking about this with Kelly, and that's what I think all of his movies are. And this movie is no exception. And it's a brilliant exercise of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Stuff.
That's going real deep on Sam Mendes there. I mean,
that was more Kelly's idea.
Skyfall's the best James Bond movie, so there you go. That's my 2 cents on the guy. But with that, though, I think we should probably wrap this up, guys. Before we sign off, like I said, this is our last episode before our finale, and then I think we might even do a end of the decade episode too. I mean, we'll see how these things come on, but we're gonna do our top 10 for next month, and then we're gonna do probably gonna do kind of a similar top 10 of the decade, just for fun and kicks and giggles, because it sounds like a fun time over there. But real quick though, I mean, 2020 is here now. What movies are you guys most excited about for 2020? Brandon?
Definitely Christopher Nolan's Tenet. It's always an event to see him do a movie, and this one looks a little more contained, and I'm really excited to see him do that. Also, the new Bond movie, straight up just because Cary Fukunaga is doing it, and he's a genius director. So I'm really excited for No Time to Die.
Yeah.
The trailer makes it look like I'm going to have to watch Spectre, though. I haven't seen Spectre.
Really?
It looks like I can start.
No.
It's okay.
Do I need to watch Spectre then?
I mean, I'm sure you don't have to, but it looks like it's kind of a continuation of some sort.
Yeah. That'd be like a first for Bond, wouldn't it? That's like a direct
I think all of these Daniel Craig ones are pretty, like, they're not like direct sequels, but they all are kind of related. Yeah, like Casino Royale. I haven't seen the second one, but I do think that they all kind of are supposed to go together on some level.
Nice. I'm really excited for the Wonder Woman sequel, Wonder Woman 1984. I really, really, really like the first one, and I'm hoping they can keep up that quality and uniqueness. Also, Edgar Wright's next movie, Last Night in Soho, comes out this year. I'm really excited for that.
Yeah.
There's not much information about it, but it'll be good, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, definitely second Tenet and Wonder Woman. I was actually just before the show looking at Wonder Woman, like just images from Wonder Woman, and it looks so cool. Like the look of it and the style that they're going for looks really cool.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited for A Quiet Place Part 2. I'm really excited to see what they do with it, and like I'm really excited to see John Krasinski come back and direct a second part to it. I'm really, he's a fun guy to root for, Jim Halpert.
Yeah.
Always rooting for Jim Halpert, and I want to see him progress as a director, as a filmmaker. So yeah.
I'm really excited for New Mutants. Just kidding. I don't think that's ever going to actually come out. But this isn't supposed to come out until like next December, but Dune, the new Denis Villeneuve film.
Fuck.
It's like gonna be a whole year, but Denis Villeneuve is like, I don't know, he hasn't made a bad movie yet, and each one has been pretty incredible, and he's been doing a lot of sci-fi lately. Blade Runner 2049 and Arrival, and David Lynch did a Dune movie, and it wasn't great, but it does have a cult following for a reason. There's a lot of material there in the Dune universe, and I'm just very curious and excited to see what Denis Villeneuve does to it. I'm also cautiously optimistic about Ghostbusters Afterlife. Ghostbusters 2016 aside, I didn't think it was as terrible as a lot of other people did. I thought it was just a fine movie, but I don't know. The fan base for Ghostbusters can be pretty intense, and I hope that the movie just comes out and it's a fun movie. Everyone knows that Ghostbusters is my all-time favorite, so I always thought this was the better direction to go, to actually make like a legacy sequel instead of a weird sort of reboot type tongue-in-cheek thing that they did. But still, I don't really have hate for the 2016 one either. So,
trailer looks really good. I was really impressed. That's a really interesting way to take the franchise. I totally agree.
Yeah, and who doesn't like Paul Rudd, right? Who doesn't like Ant-Man?
Yeah.
Anyway, so that sums it up for this episode. The Academy Awards are coming up. End of the year lists are coming up. A lot of great movies out in theaters. Go watch movies, people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should plug our Star Wars episode, Nick.
Oh yeah, we didn't release an episode last month, but we did release a Star Wars retrospective. It's 2 episodes because we talked about Star Wars for like 4 hours. But if you want to break down the Skywalker saga with us, me and Sean and Cowshay did just that. So that's on all of our channels. So check that out. And yeah, that's why we didn't talk about Star Wars on this one. First of all, none of us, I don't think, would have picked it. But if you want to hear our take on Rise of Skywalker, you can hear it on that episode. So anyway, like I said, go watch some movies. Have a great day.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.